So if you look at these choices, you notice two of them are kind of the same, right? Null hypothesis versus three that are alternative hypothesis. Right away, without even reading the question, I have a feeling it's one of these three. Okay? Better chance of getting it wrong, because people that make these tests are evil. Now, I'm going to cross those two off. I actually did read the question, and null hypothesis would be that there's no change, meaning the kids that watch a cartoon, their attention span is the same as before. Neither one of those choices, A or B, say that, but C says that it's going to be less than 12, and that is the correct answer, C. Now again, this won't work every single time, but if I look at the choices, look at this. Three of those are the same and two are different as far as the z-score thing, right? These two are the same and the other three are the same. So I'm going to think that maybe it's one of those three, right? And let's continue from there. Now this problem, I notice, is a little bit jacked up. There should be a minus sign between those two proportions for this. And there should be a plus sign between those fractions right there. There's probably a plus sign here too. So that doesn't seem very fair. So anyway, if you look at it, z-score 1.96 for a 95% confidence interval. Subtract the two proportions, and the proportion minus 1 divided by the sample size, the proportion of the other one minus 1 divided by the other sample size, and the answer is A. So that didn't seem very fair. Let's go to number 3. Okay, these are always tricky and they're always on the exam, so I always draw a picture. So here we have this normal distribution and the average patient right there. In the middle is what? 24.1. 24.1. And then standard deviation is 6.3. Standard deviation is 6.3. So the 25th percentile is right there. 25% of the patients are below that place. So I'm going to do inverse norm. And the inverse norm tells me that the 25th percentile is exactly negative 0.674 standard deviations below the average. Okay, so what do we do with this? So we take this negative 6.74, multiply it by the standard deviation, and subtract that number from 24. Actually, that's not right. I did too much. All we have to do is, we don't have to subtract it. We have to just multiply these, right? This is 0.674 standard deviations below the mean, and they say, well, how far are we below the mean? 0.674 times 6.3. And if you do that, it is going to be letter E. If you multiply those two numbers, you get 4.22, and it's below the average. Okay. Clear as mud, right? Okay, which one of these situations would be difficult to explore using a census? Remember, a census is when you ask every single person in the entire population. Now that's in the Constitution that we do a census every 10 years. And it's becoming harder and harder to do. But anyway, that's what a census is. And it's not just the United States population, it's the population of whatever you're looking at. So let's look at the answers on this thing. So when I look at this question, I say, well, which one of these represents the biggest population? It's going to be E. The proportion of trees, so you have to sample you have to get the information from every single tree in a large state forest. That would be difficult, so letter E. Okay, always drawing a picture. And that's not just for this class, this is like all math and science people are constantly doing this. drawing pictures. So remember, box plot. Each one of these little sections represents 25% of your data. So 25% of your data is there, and 25 there, and 25 there, and 25 there, which is why we call them quartiles. We divide it into 4 quarters. Now, the first quartile, which is right here, and the third quartile, which is right there, is 895 and 990. First quartile and third quartile. That's 2 quarters, 50%. C is our answer. Okay, number 6. Which one of these is, what does it say, a reason for potential bias? Well, I read these answers, and they all seem to represent some sort of potential for bias. But what we have to do in this case is, which one is the most glaring, which would cause the most concern? And it's right here, this voluntary response. Only the people who feel strongly about the election would be more likely to respond. B is the answer. The other answers are also pretty correct, but B is the most correct. Welcome to AP. Number 7, it says that this random variable y is normally distributed. What that means is it's got this normal curve like that. Whoa, what was that? Okay, let me draw it again. It has this normal curve, something like that. So the mean is 500, so the middle is 500 and a standard deviation of 25. And you know, if we're down here at 440, that's 60 below, right? So because it's normally distributed, it's roughly symmetric, so that's 60 away, right? 440 and 500, that's 60 away. So this area here, less than 440, is probably roughly the same as the area above, which is going to be more than 560. And that's choice letter C. Let's go to number 8. Okay, so there's a correlation, number of rubber bands versus distance, and the relationship between that distance and the number of rubber bands is not going to change. It's still the same distance no matter how you measure it. So whether they measure it in centimeters or inches is not going to affect anything. So the answer is C. Okay, let me do these next 3 and then I'll be done. Whoa, look at this. Before I even read the question, I notice that these box plots are lined up right here. So 75% of the data is less than 25%, right? Anyway, let's see if one of those answers links up with that. They love doing this. Ha! I missed it. But check it out. See this median right here? The median right here lines up with that maximum right there, like that. So that is choice D. Half of the reaction times for the group exposed to non-threatening stimuli are greater than all of the reaction times of the group exposed to the threatening stimuli. See that? This is half the data, and that's above the maximum of that other one. Letter D. Okay, every time you roll a die, you have an equal opportunity of getting, you could have, sure, they rolled a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, but they could have easily have rolled 6 every single time. In fact, you could roll a 6 forever. That's a possibility. It's unlikely, but it is a possibility. So every time you roll the die, it's a 1/6 chance of getting any of those 6 numbers. It's got to be B. Okay, the answer is B. So this is an example of blocking. So if you were to do an experiment, you have your subjects and you're going to assign them to two different treatments. So it's almost like a whole new experiment. So randomly assign to the forest, right? And randomly assign to the non-forest and do the experiment, okay? And then compare your results. So that's because you have this additional variable. When we did in the chapter, they were talking about a laundry detergent that worked better on colors versus white clothes. So they blocked it by color. A separate experiment for each one, and then compare the results. That's called blocking. And what it does is it decreases the effect of any lurking variable. At least it helps do that. So the answer is B. And anyway, I'm going to stop there, and hopefully you'll watch this video and we can do some work during class on the next group of multiple choice like that.